identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land, and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge, and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate-threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land, and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge, and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate-threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land, and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge, and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land, and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge, and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate-threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land, and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge, and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate-threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land, and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate-threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate-threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate-threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low income and climate threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge, and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers, and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land, and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market. SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low income and climate threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge, and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers, and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact
Morning and welcome to day two of the Livelihoods India Summit 2021. Before we move further, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping topics. So today's sessions are being recorded. You will be able to view them on our YouTube channel. You can find us under the name of Access Development Services. Also, this specific panel at this time is going live on the YouTube channel. So we can also, so viewers are also able to see us live there. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself and share it further. We also invite your comments and questions. Please take a look at the Q&A chat box on your screen. If you think of a question for the speakers at any point, you can type it in there and we will hold it for the discussion portion at the end of the session. I am very, very excited to welcome you all to the summit's third plenary today. This is on gender and women inclusive entrepreneurship in the Global South. The Global South has had a tradition of movements and organizing for gender equality, which is centered around lived realities of women and barriers that they have faced in making it to the mainstream. This panel specifically, I think all of us are looking forward to insights about passionate work from across the Global South to find collectible action, collectible to learn collectible lessons. So today we are joined by Dr. Neelam Maheshwari. She's Director at Livelihoods for All Social Asia, Ashoka. Neelam works closely with Ashoka Fellows in enabling innovations, strategies, and systems driven initiatives to enhance livelihoods for all. She began her career with Pradhan and has also worked with the Deshpande Foundation. Neelam has kindly agreed to moderate the session. Very, very warm welcome to you, Neelam. Among our panelists, we have Dr. Iman Bibers. She's joining us from Egypt. She's Vice President Ashoka Global and Regional Director Ashoka Arab World. We have Southeast Asia leader Nani joining us. She's also Ashoka Fellow and founder of PECA. Prema Gopalanji, founder and executive director, Swayam Shikshan Prayog, is also joining us today. So at this point, I'm extremely, extremely excited, as you can already see. I'm going to hand it over to Neelam to take this discussion forward. All yours, Neelam.
Thank you so much, Parul. Super excited, just like you, and very warm welcome to all of you, Nani, Iman, and Prema ji. Thanks for joining us today. I must tell you, it is the very first time that Livelihood Summit is hosting a panel on gender inclusive entrepreneurship in Global South. It has not, I think it's the very first time we are hosting a panel of this nature. So with this, I welcome you all again. I know it's not been easy. For Iman, it's still 6 a.m. in the morning. So she's from Egypt and Nani is from Indonesia. It's almost pre-afternoon. And for Prema ji is from Maharashtra here in India, but still 9 a.m., 9:30 is not super, it's still considered early. Yeah. With this, without taking much time, I'll just quickly share one word that Nani is actually one of our colleague in Ashoka. She's also was an Ashoka fellow and a colleague. Just a quick note here. All of you have, with your work, have moved continents literally and set precedent for not just millions of women, but the generations to come. Without taking much time in explaining more about your work, I would rather make most of this time by talking to each of you and getting most out of the discussion. With this, I request each of you to perhaps just talk a little bit about your work. Maybe we'll begin with Prema ji, and if I could ask the organizer to play the video quickly so that then she could talk a little bit more about that.
SSP's vision is to empower grassroots women to take on new public roles as entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders, and chain makers in low-income and climate-threatened communities all over India, and to create robust partnership ecosystems that enhance women's access to their entitlements, rights, knowledge, and skills. In the next 10 to 15 years, SSP will empower 1 million women, farmers, and entrepreneurs, impacting the lives of 15 million people. Through our women-led climate-smart farming solution, SSP's vision is to firstly redefine women's identity from that of a farm labor to a decision maker, grassroots advocate, and climate leader. Secondly, to build the resilience of small and marginal farming households in climate-threatened communities. And finally, to transform the agriculture practices by introducing no chemical biofarming, which has a lasting impact on their health, land, and environment. At the heart of this climate-smart farming solution is our goal to mainstream women as farmers and decision makers, as entrepreneurs, enabling them to take well-informed decisions around types of crops, inputs, food production, and going to market.
Such a absolutely powerful video, something we had to begin our morning with. Thank you so much for this. I will come back to this video and content of it more later in the discussion, Prema ji. Nani, if I could request you to talk about your work a little bit, give also a sense of who you are and where you come from, where you talk about your work.
Thank you, Nilam. Selamat pagi, namaste, good morning, greetings from Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm Nani Zulminarni. In the year 2001, I think approximately 20 years ago, I started a new initiative to organize women head of families in Indonesia who are widows, divorced, abandoned women, single women, women soldiers, the role of the breadwinners in most rural areas or urban poor in Indonesia. Initially, it was called Widows Projects. However, since the word widows in Indonesia's terminology as janda has a very stigmatized and exclusions or discrimination terminology. So I then transformed the title of the program into Women-Headed Family Empowerment Program called PEKKA, P-E-K-K-A. That's focus more on important roles and responsibility as well as status of women without husband in their family. So it is actually personal journey for myself as I'm a divorced woman who experienced all the discriminations, exclusion, and stigma in my life. In the midst of my struggle to continue our lives with my life with my children, taking care of children. So I started working in 4 provinces at that time, which are the post-conflict and conflict area. But now PEKKA approach combines grassroots organizing, economic and legal empowerment, public outreach, policy advocacy, and also applied market research. Now we are the largest women-headed family movement, grassroots women movement with membership in all over Indonesia. I'm elected as a Nasoka Fellow in 2007, and I think last year joined Nasoka Global Management Team responsible for Southeast.
Fantastic. So it's one of the largest group in Indonesia, and it's amazing how Premaji said that it's also climate resilient. It's basically in the middle of the crisis, but then you bring out the resilience and then build on it. It's lovely. Iman, with this, can I request you to please talk about your work a little bit in 2-3 minutes, and then we can dive into the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I always prefer to, I really like the idea of South to South. So thank you for the organizers and for you, Nilam, for asking me to be here. Nani, my friend. I'm a little bit older than all of you. So I started actually, my name is Iman Bibars. I'm Egyptian. I have worked all over the Arab world, but also Africa. And I started the first microfinance organization around 30, maybe a little more than 30 years ago in Egypt, but also we were able to spread it all over the Arab world. The organization was called Association for the Development and Enhancement of Women, and we worked with the female heads of households. We were the first one to recognize them and categorize them in 10 categories. And we worked on the grassroots level, providing lots of services, but also on the policy level. We managed to change the nationality law. We managed to change the identity card law, where we were able to get women to have identity cards and be legally there. And we managed to reach millions and millions of kids, for example, with the nationality law, 17 million kids. With the identity cards, more than 40 million women across the Arab world. However, I joined Ashoka. I was not a Ashoka fellow. I wish I were, but I joined Ashoka and I found it. Yeah, it's really nice to be an Ashoka fellow. I joined Ashoka 18 years ago. I founded Ashoka Arab World, and we've been able to elect more than 120 fellows across the Arab world in 11 or 12 countries there. But I also founded the Women Initiative for Social Entrepreneurship, where Nani is a member now, whether she likes it or not. But anyway, and where it is a movement across Ashoka led by the South, and that's why I'm excited, and I will talk about it later, and whereby we are redefining success and the impact of women and telling their stories in a way that has not been done before, because we have overcome challenges. So, and we collaborate with each other, but also we want to talk about scaling up, scaling out, and scaling deep. And we can talk about this later.
No, this is fantastic, because this is what I'm going to ask you next, Iman. Is just building up on this discussion. It's also all three of you talked about identity, resilience, building collective identity, but then also there's element of entrepreneurship. Just turn crisis into opportunity. So we'll tell a little bit, speak to the title of the panel today, that what does it really mean to make entrepreneurship women inclusive? What and why in current times it's even more relevant?
Okay, thank you very much. I think what is very important and what we discovered after 18 years of doing a lot of work with fellows across the world, I've been working with all women fellows from every north, south, east, west, is that women are very entrepreneurial. It's just that they are not recognized and their impact is not recognized. And I think these are two very important differences. So it is not like women are not entrepreneurial. No, they are. And they are doing great work across the world. It is that the ecosystem does not recognize this. And I know later on we will talk about system change. Why is the Women Initiative for Social Entrepreneurship is a changing of the rule, the games of the rule of the game program. It's a system change program. What we need to identify is that women are able to change things because they scale up, which means they change policies. I mean, when we in ADU 30 years ago or more, maybe 20 years ago changed the nationality law, we were able to influence the future of 17 million kids. And that was only the data I got 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Because once they were recognized as Egyptians, because we changed the nationality law, they were able to go to school, to work, to produce, and not to be outsiders, with no nationality. Nani herself, and she can talk better, but when she was able to work on the birth certificates and identity cards also, and other things in her country, 40 million kids were affected. So this is what we call scaling up. Scaling deep is what you change mindsets. And when you are trying to let people change their habits and behavior, you don't affect only, as you said in the beginning, not the generation that we're targeting now, but future generations. And scaling out is really what is gendered. It is really more business, more male-oriented, where you say, how many people have I reached, which is important. But in our work as social entrepreneurs, women are cause-driven, they collaborate, they transfer the know-how, and they are really more interested in affecting policies, because it stays forever, and in affecting mindsets. So I think entrepreneurship, to be inclusive, we have to convince, and we are going to do that, the world and the ecosystem that women have impact. And especially, to be honest, I'm not being biased, but especially women in the South. We need our voices to be heard, because there are so many wonderful examples in the South whereby we can really affect the systems in the global North and South.
Right. Perfect. I think this is lovely. So you're saying entrepreneurship is not just about numbers, but it's about changing the infrastructure of decision making so that people become part of the system, become part of the growth and development. And it's amazing that you talked about ecosystem and context, which is something, Prema ji keeps talking about and very passionately works on it, that it's not just looking at women as farm labor, but then, look at them as grassroots leaders, as climate change leaders, and, just really the center of everything they do. So Prema ji, if it's okay, if I may request you to talk a little bit more about the importance of ecosystem, as Iman just talked about, and the context in your own work, and in the context of what this panel is all about today.
Thanks a lot, Neelam. Before I, rush to explain what ecosystem is, I think
Yeah.
the context is really important. That Swine Shikshan Prayog, or SSP, a 2-decade organization, has, together with poor communities, especially rural women, faced crisis after crisis, whether it's floods or cyclones or long-standing disasters like droughts. And I think this has made us think very differently about how women need to be entrepreneurs, but also they need to look at a basket of enterprises, because they have to be ready for any situation. And these are, I'm talking about agriculture dependent economies,
Right.
where 80% of farmers are small farmers below 2 hectares of land, and also women. It's a very feminized agriculture, so more than 80% of agriculture workers are women. Yet they do not possess any access to land title.
Yeah.
They're not eligible for any credit, subsidies, or even training from either the agriculture department or the enterprise. So both, as women are not recorded, as they don't have land titles, they're not recorded as farmers. And because they don't have collaterals for bank loans, they're not recorded as entrepreneurs.
Right.
Yet in the global south or in South Asia, we know almost a very high percentage of poor women are organized in self-help groups. And for years, they've actually done microcredit work and brought benefits, economic benefits to their families. So we really changed our approach. We started with the usual domain training in garment making or in sewing or in other services. And we saw that it was a huge mindset change that is required for women to become entrepreneurs. So we've impacted over 300,000 women in whom we have seeded entrepreneurship through an ecosystem, or what I would say, institutional partnerships that allow women to access information, credit, training, and also look at markets very differently. So more on that later, Neelam.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You just kind of hit the nail on its head. That we talk about entrepreneurs, we are really saying the context is what it's agriculture driven, and women are at the center of it. But yet we look at very gendered occupations when we think about livelihoods. So you're saying we turn back to agriculture, and I know you're not saying it, but then there are lakhs of farmers, women farmers in Maharashtra and across the country are now doing the climate resistant, climate smart, safe harvest, and actually earned 40, 50, 60% more income than any of the farmers have done in their traditional agriculture practices. So it's like turning the entire model on its head and putting women at the center of it, climate resilience at the center of it. And it's really, speaks to that ecosystem and context, and then turning it into, what is in favor of women. So with this, I keep hearing that you say that it's not talking about one woman, two women. It's about, lots of women talking to each other, collaborating with each other. And otherwise it is not possible. And you keep saying it, that we have to have women collective-led enterprises. I will turn to Nani on this, and then, maybe perhaps bring in her experience of working in Indonesia and across the countries. And maybe let us know a little bit about her learnings in what does it really take to collaborate across borders? It is not as easy as it sounds. So if you could just share with few examples, the power of this collaboration and also the learnings that comes with it, Nani.
Yes. Yeah, I think first of all, I think we have to understand that the collaboration, particularly in the global south, is very important and critical more than ever at the time, because we are entering the world where everything is it's connected and influential each others. If we are talking about the climate change, for example, which affect our life, it's not happen because of one place, right? It's happened in some other place, but affect us in that other place. That's why this collaboration is important. Based on our experiences, we found that the collaboration can work well if we focusing more on our similarities, our share on struggle, and find common ground, what actually we are fighting for and who are actually our enemies, right? As the global south, particularly in relations with inequality and injustice, we have similar historical background and the development approach, which our life very much dominated by the development narrative, which then sometimes make the distance between life experience that we facing of that. So that's why the globalization's era, which affect us, which put us as a target of a market of everything. So it's not only product, but also ideas, framework, thoughts, wisdom and all those things, while we actually have very rich in our own and rooted. So this, I think, become the basis, the strong base for us to build our collaboration. For example, in my work with PACA, we look at one of the challenges in the women's movement, particularly as if we are dealing with this livelihood, is the regenerations, right? We have, I think, we call it lost generations of young people in certain time because of this suddenly change on information technology and other things, where the work around livelihood, the work around production is no longer attract young people. So that's why then our collaboration really working with young people in different countries to build their leadership, to show and then to learn together the system influence us, why we change from the women usually are very strong producers, now become consumers. We have become target of market rather than we delivering market, because we are in the global south. That's why it's very important to create this space. So now and in Ashoka, as Iman already mentioned, through WISE, we try also to bring together women, young women, particularly social entrepreneurs, to come together to speak, to talk, and to share, and then to build our critical awareness, and then build collective action and collective thinkings. How can we protect our life, and how can we cultivate women's experience as source of knowledge and source of power? Because it has been a long time we are not valued, right? Women's experience not seen as important knowledge, source of knowledge, which influence the policy or development program. So with Iman, for example, leadership, we try to really strengthen Ashoka with these women social entrepreneurs, which of course is not easy, right? We're in these gigantic organizations but through by showcase how women can make difference, how can we make systemic change through our initiative in different part of the countries in the global south, then others can see that actually there are a lot of to offer from our side.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nani. I think you really put across all the questions of difference and sameness, and that's why the need for us to kind of, find a connection with each other in ways that it's translatable in impact and gives us some concrete action to work on. With this, Iman, I'm going to just pick on what just Nani says and, maybe request you to elaborate a bit more for those who are listening to us today. That why is this global South collaboration is even more important now? And what do we stand to gain with it? And building on to what just Nani and Prema said. So could you please?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for. I think this is very important. I think that personally, I've always been concerned with South to South collaboration, but I think there's always silver lining in everything, and I think COVID, the Corona, made us all get connected with internet and online more than meetings, which actually facilitated us knowing a lot about each other. I think it's very important to realize that the world now is more aware of each other, that now we know what's going on because of the social media and the technology. And this is the time where the Global South has to share its wealth. I think, not only as women, we have stopped being producers, as Global South intellectual wealth, we have also been very silent, maybe because we were not well connected. And I think to start, we have to work together first. Yeah. We have so many similarities in the South. So I'm not saying that Global South and Global North should not benefit from each other, but I think as the Global South, we have so much similarities. We have similarities sometimes in the type of inequality women face, in the time of sometimes religious beliefs that are misunderstood, in the times of economic hazards we meet. We as Global South need, first of all, to come together, learn from each other, share experience, and then come with our own theories of change, because our theories of change fit us better. We cannot, and that's what I call the all girls club. Women in general face problems as social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general with funding, with some challenges that they might not find solutions to, with the ecosystem that Prema and Nani were talking about, the context. We have similar context. We have similar challenges. We are there at the same level in a way. So if we come together now and work together to share with the world that we do overcome challenges, we are not the victims. You and me and Perma and Nani would not be here if we have not overcome our challenges. So let's share it with young girls. That's what we do in WISE, with every girl, with the Changemakers platform. We have for everybody to come and share how we as women from the South overcome challenges, how we women of the South are telling people that we have to redefine success because we as women have impact. But we need to have the same stories together and share it with the South first, create a movement in the South, and then share it with the North so that we are on equal grounds. We have already had a lot of impact in our countries. And yes, there is importance to share experience with the North, but let us first collectively, as you said, collectively work together, have an all-girls group, and come and teach everybody, teach ourselves, but also teach the North that we have a wealth of successful women, and we are not victims. We are, you are heroines, and we have done a lot. Prema in her work, Nani in her work, Dini, myself, a lot of us, and you, Nima, all of us have really a lot of history and wealth to share with each other, to encourage young girls, but also to share with the North. So it is extremely important.
Yeah. No, this is absolutely great. I'm going to just quickly break this sequence and then, ask all of you to kind of respond to one or two questions that are coming, but I see the underlying assumption behind them. In my own work with women micro entrepreneurs for about 8 years and 10,000 women across few states, I understand the relationship of women with entrepreneurship is different. They relate with entrepreneurship differently. And as Premaji said, it's not just about credit, it's skill, it's ecosystem and everything. For a moment, if you pause and just say that, we have worked in our own domain and Premaji is working and Ani is working in, but if we were to somehow spell out, what do the women and of Global South stand to gain if we were to look at a collaborative, an alliance of this kind? If you could to spell it in few words or few sentences. Also, what does it mean for a farmer in Bihar or a home worker in Indonesia or a migrant worker in Egypt. Just take few minutes the way you like, and just help us understand what do we stand to gain as, what this alliance would result into, amount to. And I think these are the questions are also about in the chat box.
I want to answer.
Yeah,
Can I answer
can I
first?
go? Yeah.
So all of you have to. Maybe Prema go first, and then Nani, and then Iman.
Yeah, thanks. I think I think collaboration is the key. And if you look at the post-pandemic data world over, more than 700 million women in the informal sector have even lost their jobs or wages, both urban and rural. It really points out for the urgent need for women to be part of groups and networks to increase both their bargaining power, but also to be more visible and to be able to make the most important system changes that they need to do. Because I really do believe that globally we are connected with the digital and financial inclusion. So I think the key words are that we need to really look forward, exchange our experiences with getting women into markets, into value chains. And for us, if it's rural women, it's the agriculture and food value chain that's really become the essential, while a lot of other businesses have become non-essential. So I think this is what is here to stay. So we need to really alert women to be part of organized groups and to also share, which has become much easier digitally, and also to be able to access. So these are the lobbying points that a network in especially South Asia would have, to lobby that women should be able to access flexible patient capital in order to start and grow and sustain their enterprises. Thanks, Neelam.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, couldn't have articulated that more. Nani, do you wanna take a stab at the same question? What do women stand to gain, and how do we spell it out in terms of outcomes? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very clear, right? If we want that the vision and purpose must be very clear. If we want to build this collaboration, it's not only like ceremonial or we are like developing a network, something like that. But it's very, I think one particular thing that the global South, as the global South people, we have to look at the equality and the injustice, right? Particularly in relation with access and control over resources. And then how can we collaborate to build an autonomous resources for our movement, for our livelihood, so that we won't depend on, others to dictate us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But it's really our freedom to really develop things, to do things based on our context, based on our needs, based on our resources. The challenge of this building collaboration, of course, there are too many politics, too many what you call it, politics, right? Too many politics and purpose, which that's why I think in the collaboration we have to be focused. We have to work on certain purpose, which measurable and really look at from the systemic change. Just one example, right? For example, the pandemics really teach us that we need to work together. We need to care about others in the global South, in other countries, because if we only us get vaccinated, but our sister brothers in other countries not get vaccinated, then all of us will get affected. That's why it's important that the sharing, the values of sharing, the values of the empathy and the solidarity should be part of the agenda in our collaborations.
Lovely, lovely. It's beautiful. Equality, justice, and make sure that system change and empathy is part of our social fabric. So that and the way we are, the way of our being actually, not just in our actions. This is lovely. You know, Iman, you have a tough job. Prema and
Well,
Manny have spelled it out.
I know
So what
it
does
is
it
tough.
mean?
Yeah.
Not for you.
Yeah, it's always tough to talk. But I think the first thing is very important. It is access to funding. I mean, one of the problems we all talked about women-led organizations in the South, or individual farmers or collective groups, is funding. And the funding has always been a problem because the way the impact and success was measured is by numbers only, and not the policy formation or the changes of mindsets. And I think one of the important things from Global South, by telling the stories in a different way, like we do in WISE, we are going to show the world that there are lots of women, including the farmers, including the weavers, including the female heads of households. They do have an impact, and this is very important. So the collective leadership is important, and the fact that we work together will affect every farmer, because we're going to change how people think of women in the South and their impact. The second thing is that also we will have a voice. As Nani was saying, the theory of change has to come from us, given our context. If we work together, all of us, not only Southeast Asia, but South, Global South, we will have a voice because our context, our problems are different. And therefore, we will have a voice, and we will not only listen to people coming with theories to impose on us, but we will influence how the donors, how the funders, how they have, affect us and tell us what to do. And finally, role models. I mean, I think it's very important. We have something called the Young Change Makers, Ashoka Young Change Makers in Ashoka, where we are trying to, create an everyone a change-making world, where we have young girls and boys that have led initiatives. And to be honest, one of the reasons how we started the movement in the Arab world was we got videos from girls from India and from Indonesia. And if we got girls from America, it would not have influenced our girls in Egypt or Tunisia or Morocco, because they would have said, oh, but they're Americans. But when we got girls who look like us, who are similar to us, now we have a movement, and we have a lot of young girls now that are doing their own initiatives. So role models, even if we are not collectively working together, because we look like each other, we have the same context. So funding is important for Global South. Showing that we overcome challenges and being role models, showing cases that are similar, and having our own theory of change because we have the same context.
Lovely, lovely. I think it's getting more intense, and we have a lot of questions coming in. So a lot of audience is asking us questions, and one of the questions that if I could, bring it back to, to relate to what the discussion is today. Couple of things, even though we talk about women empowerment and women movement, two things happen. One, the gender roles kind of come along with it. So there is this expectation from women that kind of stays, and then she has to do everything at the top of it, not despite of it, or away from it. So please talk a little bit about each of you, if I request that, if you were to put the woman that we have in our mind, which is in Prema's G's case, is a woman farmer working in Maharashtra, and even in the state, or in Nani's case, it's a women-headed family, a woman who is single-handedly dealing with the family, and in Iman's case, working with women entrepreneurs who are trying to access funding. What could the milestones would look like? What could the signpost of progress look like if you were to allow ourselves to do a little bit of a future gazing? Of course, you said a lot of it is in your past in discussion we just had, but if you were to, for the sake of audience who's listening to it, were to kind of put a little bit more, decipher, uncomplicated for us, simplify, what would those milestones look like? What would those signposts look like? And if there is a way to kind of unravel, what you see, do away with the gender roles, somehow deconstruct it in ways that's truly empowering for women. Anyone, if you were.
Yeah, so Neelam, from my experience, we've seen that women have to grow as not just as entrepreneurs or farmers, but also as change makers themselves, so that they can change the circumstances around them. They can bring a change in the gender roles of their family members, whether it's their spouse or children. And we've seen the best way to do this. Women who have over 150,000 women who have adopted the climate resilient farming model are now seen and known as knowledge generators, as planners, as local planners, and also this is viewed by the communities and the local governments and officials. So naturally, this impacts the family. So our theory of change is that women have to take on public roles, and then it impacts their roles as planners and decision makers related to girls' education or making health and priority within families, and also to be not handed over in a plate, but they are better off in fighting for land rights and also for the assets. So this is a slow change. It's not really fast, but women take everyone along, and that seems to be the path for sustainable gender change or exchange of roles. So we do have women entrepreneurs who begin small, then they go up to having more than 20 women, but also 5 or 6 of the family members are working with them. So there is a mindset change which kind of we see is sustained for many years. That's what makes it very heartening.
Lovely. Women taking public roles, and it's our nature that women do take everyone along. It's not just her moving forward, and I think we need to do more and more of that. Then I want to come to Nani and just build on to what Premaji just said. No, I think I asked this question to all of you. If you want to answer that, the questions I just asked Premaji, that what the signpost of progress will look like for someone who is in Indonesia. I know the very typical person that we work with, or someone that Iman works with, who's the end, what do you say, the constituent that we are talking about here,
Yeah,
go ahead, Nani.
Yeah, I think first of all, I really would like to say that we need to leaving the dominations narrative of development, right? Which everything's are quantified, everything's measured through where you go and how many and that kind of thing. I think Iman always said we need to redefine success. What is success mean for us, and what is success means for women. As women leaders and social entrepreneurs, we understand that to reach certain level of change for a woman is not just, is 1 + 1 is not always 2, right? There are many other ways of seeing it, and many other ways women reach that level. So I think we need to look at, if you want to measure the success and the progress, we need to look at what are the process. The process is very important and critical. Every single stories and every single stories in the journey, I think, are full of learning, knowledge, and experiences of women which need to be valued as as a success. Even though, for example, we end up with, in the development world maybe nothing, but I think there are some change from inside. So it's important. I want to also support what Prana says, that it is important to look at the power within, what we change in power within, what we change in power over us for a long time, and then what we change to building collective power, and then how we should put women and girls as the central of change, and put the element of happiness, no, and change and happiness, because we might change. Maybe, for example, in one family, it's changed, the income increase, but actually the women suffered of multiple burden, because they have to do the economic activity, they have to take care of the household work, because women change, women enter the economic world, but the men do not change. Men still like a king in the house, they don't do household work, so that's why become women with more income but more burden. So it's not. I think it's not what we want, right? So we should put this as the milestones.
Lovely. Yeah.
Okay. It's very interesting what Nani just said, because one of the things when you ask this question, and I even wrote notes, was changing the rules of the game. And I even said because now we have a new patriarchy. I mean, first of all, reproductive role of women. Women have multiple roles and reproductive. And in Arabic, I translated it into reproducing, because we kept on thinking reproductive role, and then we talked about, how to raise your kids and all this. Actually, I look at it differently. Reproductive role means we as women are reproducing society. So this is a public affair, not a private affair. We should be taken seriously. We should not be punished for it. We are reproducing the army, the scientists, the presidents of these countries, and this role should be taken very seriously, and we have forgotten that. That's why I think this Global South role we're playing now, and we're trying to work together, is important. We should not be punished for having pregnancy and taking leave for our kids, especially in the capitalist society. So this is very important. Just as Nani said, I just wrote it. We worked so hard to be recognized economically, yet our housework is still not recognized. The men don't do anything in the house, and we are still, as I said, punished for pregnancy. So what we need to do is go back, guys, as women from the South, together first, because this is where we suffer, and go into changing the rules of the game. We should go back and say, no, yes, our multiple roles have to be recognized, and we have to work harder on it. We got involved into this. We have to work harder on saying, our pregnancy is a role. This farmer or the women-headed household, just as Nani was saying, we do all the work now. Actually, men are happier, at least in the Arab world than Egypt, because now we work outside and inside. And it is not a war. On the contrary, we should really just have our voice heard again, go back, to the classroom and ask for these rights that we have forgotten to ask about anymore, and say the gender roles have to go back to where everybody shares. The family, women lead change, yes, but men have a role to play. And they have to remember this. Our girls and boys have to remember this. And unless we do that, we're going to continue doing these multiple roles, So go back and fight for it again. And tell the young girls that we have to fight for it again. This would be my answer.
Perfect. I am super inspired and trying to stay focused with these, mind-blowing answers. I think it's good to hear it again and again. And from the leaders like yourselves, it just kind of means a lot more to people like me, and then many more who are listening to us. With this, Iman, I'm going to build on to what you just said and Nani and Prema said, and I'm going to come back to Prema and Nani ji after this. You talked about changing the rule of the game, or in other words, we call it system change. And then Ashoka has this whole theory about it. How do we decipher this? Again, I'm just bringing it back because I think it's important that we unpack system change. What do we mean by it, especially in this context of making a woman inclusive entrepreneurship landscape, and and what could we do to kind of enable that kind of system change? So maybe you can begin with Iman and then come to Prima and Nani.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much again. And I always say, and Bill Drayton, actually, the founder of Ashoka, talks when we talk about system change and what do we mean by changing the rules of the game. We all know basketball, right? Basketball is a sport where you have the teams, you have the place where you work, and you have the coach, and you have the rules of the game. So if you change the coach, if you change the ground where they're playing, or if you even change the team members, you're not changing the rules of the game. But if you change how they play basketball, that's changing the rules of the game. So how we unpack this is to understand what are the rules of the game. So for example, if we talk about women and social entrepreneurship, I don't want to be redundant, but the main problem women in social entrepreneurship face, two problems. One is that their impact is not recognized. This is very important because whenever we tell the stories, we have a problem in telling our stories, but the world has a problem in understanding our stories. So what we decided to do in Women Initiative is to tell the stories in a way that the world will understand. So we talk about scaling up or deep and out, and this is very important because unless the world, the ecosystem, everybody understands that women have an impact, they will not invest in us. And if they don't invest in women-led organizations, we cannot grow and we cannot have success. And the idea is, if you change a law, we translate it in how many people it has affected. So because we as women were always very proud, we've changed the law because we understand how difficult it is in the South. But the ecosystem doesn't understand this. The people who invest in you doesn't understand this. The same thing about mindsets. If you change, I always say this, if I talk to a million men or women about, for example, wife battering or female genital mutilation, I don't know how many people will go home and don't do this to their daughters. But if I focus and work on 10,000 people alone, then their children will be changed, their grandchildren will be changed, and in 10 years, they will be a million. And this is what we want the world to understand. So if I unpack system change, this is system change. This is scaling up, changing laws and regulations which affect millions, but also being able to present it in a way that the world will understand. And then mindsets. Don't talk about, oh, I will change the mindsets of 10,000 people. Talk about how this will have an effect generation after generation. And this is changing the rules of the game in how we measure impact, in how we measure success, but also in how we as women social entrepreneurs are presenting our cause. This is the system change we need. Also, another system change is how we ourselves see our roles. Again, I will repeat myself. There is a new patriarchy, and we have to face it, and we have to fight it together as women by saying men have a role to play, and our role as women reproducing society is a public political affair.
Lovely. This is phenomenal. Prima ji and Nani, do you want to respond to this to kind of unpack system change for all those who perhaps listening system change maybe for the first time also? Unpack it to that extent.
There are two aspects of system change. One is really building the capacities of women to kind of own their problem, to look at it broadly, and to develop a shared vision of what elements they want to change within, right from their family to community to the government institutions and financial institutions. So I think that's really a step-by-step getting them to enhance their voice and also the choices that they can make. On the other hand, it's really important to work with the systems, whether it's the financial institutions, the government, and even the private sector, to see how, where's the opportunity to really partner, to really look at how they can change rules of their game. For example, we have included after COVID very strongly a partnership with the private sector, and they have included rural women as part of the milk collection and procurement of milk in the value chain. So this is a private organization which has cooling systems. They've vastly invested in the infrastructure based on the trust that women, when they collectively come together, they can really play in the market. So it includes a lot of digital and financial skills and so on. The other example I'd like to just share in a minute is the where we've seen Ashoka social entrepreneurs and also world over in our network with the Viro Commission, that it is possible to have private sector partnership, which is shared and responsible. So on the other hand, non-profit organizations also need to have a hybrid model where you have social enterprises and non-profits working together to be able to work out social business. So I think there are several examples in Ashoka which have scaled up. And I would say that they represent some of the best system changes or changes that change regulation rules and so on, but also enhance people's voice and organization.
Thank you, Premaji. Cannot agree more. I think Ashoka Fellows do drive one of the most path-breaking system change models and examples. And that's why we are constantly an inspiration of, source of inspiration for all of us. Nani, do you want to quickly respond
how are
to
we
this?
going to take the questions? Do we have time?
Sorry, Premaji.
There are many questions which keep coming up.
Yeah, we have 10 more, 15 more minutes.
Right.
So yeah, we want to just get to now questions now. I think last 10, 15 questions and leave it a little bit more open. Nani, I quickly want to, request you to, because it's an important question. The system change is at the heart of so much that all of us are involved in. Yes, please.
Yes, I think first of all, I want to take it from what Iman says, that women's actually reproduction society. So, but in the system, so we system. If we talk about system, we always think it's a micro system, right? Big system change. But actually, from my point of view, when we talk about system change, it should start from the very individual level. Each individual is a part of the system. We are reproducing the system. We are reproducing the system, and we are actually creating this, and we are a system. So this one, as women social entrepreneurs, I think we are at least facing 3 dimensions of power over that is systemic in our life. First, the visible ones, which is manifest in regulations, law, structure, a government, and all the things, budget, whatever, which really influence our system, right? Because it's involved and second, the role of hidden power. This is where the corporations, religious institutions, indigenous institutions, who's actually also dictate our life, including what we should eat, what we should eat, what we should wear, what we shouldn't wear, or this really infiltrate our systematically infiltrate in our life. And the last one, of course, the invisible power, the system values, traditions, and practice that in everyone's mindset and thinkings, which I think both Prerna and Iman mentioned about this. So this is all actually systemic, right? And that's why when we are talking about system change, it shouldn't only like changing policy, but this is maybe what Iman always said, go deep, what you call it, scaling deep, scaling out, and scaling up. So all these dimensions need to be reached, need to be changed in order, if we are talking about system, and should we start from this individual level.
Lovely. I think this is there's a lot of food for thought for all of us, and though very specific, but then very dense. discussion. With this, we'll turn to a few questions that are there in the chat box. I think one of them is directed to, there are questions for each of you. I, can take those questions. It's one of them is, so it's kind of they come from different spaces. I think one is about before that, I just quickly want to post this one thing that we also talked about in our preparatory talk other day, all of us, that Iman talked about, that it's not just individuals from different continents and different geographies coming together. We need to find a way to make everyone part of this movement. So it is not Iman and Nani and Prema and Neha meeting, but it is millions and millions of women across the borders, meeting. So to, each of you have almost started a movement 10 years ago. Something must have triggered, something must have driven you. What could we do, or what are we doing to kind of, what is important in order that there is a distributed entrepreneurship and leadership? There isn't individuals, but there is these numbers and numbers of women who are talking the same language and trying to drive the same system change agenda. So if each of you quickly respond to that, and after that, we'll take on some of these questions. Anyone? Do you want me to repeat quickly?
You didn't say which one you want to speak.
Can I stop anyone? It's just Premaji, did you want to?
No, I think need to repeat the question.
Right. So I think the question is very simple, that we all talked about movement, and we're saying that what do we do in order to make sure that the fantastic ideas that we're talking about move beyond individuals. We're talking about distributed entrepreneurship. So, we want to have millions of Prema, which is not possible in this lifetime or another, or how do you transfer this DNA? So there is many women talking, speaking the same language and driving the same agenda. So how do you transfer this? Otherwise, the idea is we have powerful individuals talking about movement, and in the game plan we don't want only individuals collaborating. We want this collaboration across women, across border, which we should go from women to women. So so how do you?
So I think
how do we catalyze that? How do we
exactly what you said is
right.
We need ideas that really go viral. So just as an example of how Grameen got the idea to go viral across many countries,
right.
Women from the global south. I think we need to be part of peer networks, but now with the digital revolution, it is much more easier to imagine how we can share quickly, not just the impact, but also processes that can be transferred across. And I think our organization, as part of the more than 28 country network across 3 regions, we have impacted thousands of women in sharing and also pioneered the path of how do you build economic resilience? How can women actually control, to be very concrete, how can women control small funds? How can they make this as an ask as part of their government and financial institutions lobbying? And also how, the burning questions that we have when we are working in the field, often the answers are there within each of us. So I think it's really collaboration. But we need to strongly bring in now the institutional actors. So grassroots women, whether urban and rural, are not seen as being and working alone.
Yeah.
That's not going to work now anymore. Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
like to add something here. I
Yes,
mean, thank you
yes.
very much. I think a movement is a movement of people who were able to move others, you know. So, for example, the WISE movement in Ashoka, which is led by the South, is a women initiative for social entrepreneurs. This is what we know in Ashoka, social entrepreneurs. And Prema here has already influenced thousands and thousands. Nani has influenced thousands and millions, and others. I mean, we have 1,800 women social entrepreneurs in Ashoka. And if we manage to get them all to collaborate, and half of them are from the South, if not more, they will influence others. So I think the idea is that we're not going to go down. If we want to really create a collaboration that affects everybody, it is not Iman and Prema and Nani who are talking. It's Pekka and Prema's organization and other organizations and the WISE movement that are talking here. And the idea of collaboration between the South is that all those groups, so these are institutions. I am not talking to Nani, I'm talking to Pekka. You know, when we're doing WISE or to Dennis institution or Perma's institution. So we are talking about organizations that have already started movements. And what we're doing now is collaboration between movements of the South in WISE, whereby all of them will work together, will have a voice, will have a new theory of change that is based on the context of all of us together.
Yeah.
Whether it's from the individual women leading change, you know. So this is one level. The other level is, again, in the South, through Ashoka, we're electing and finding all these young change makers, girls, who are also going to be role models for other girls. So a movement starts like this, with organizations working together as individuals, but also as institutions that share the same context, the same beliefs. We're tuning each other together. We're trying to create a one theory of change, because the theory of change is ideas, right? And then how it's implemented, we respect each other's context. But that's how we create the movement. And that's how every woman, whether farmer or female head of household or micro social entrepreneur, will be reached. We cannot reach millions and have them on one meeting like this, but all these institutions will reach them. And collective leadership is really the title of every woman social entrepreneur. This is how we've discovered. We've done surveys of hundreds and thousands of hundreds of our Ashoka fellows, and all our female Ashoka fellows collaborate, transfer the know-how, and do collective leadership, and really allow younger people to come on board. So this is how it's going to be created. A movement of all movements, you know.
Movement of all movements. Lovely. You know, so inspiring, and you know, unfortunately that brings us to the very last few minutes of this inspiring session. I let each of you to, you know, quickly give some concluding thoughts, not concluding, no, the thoughts that will trigger the next level of movement of movements. We have already covered a lot of questions, Premaji. It is not, you know, they're not, and then we're going to have a continued conversation, like they're all can direct this to our through our emails, etc. So I just want to rather use this 1 minute to have each of you kind of have your own perspective on the entire thing, and what do you want to leave an audience with. Each of you, please. Anyone wants to go ahead first? Nani, do you wanna?
Yeah, I can.
Very disciplined panelists. I was like, it's gonna have a riot here, but they're like, all right, we allow you to speak. So, all right.
I can say. I think this moment, this conversation is very very important, and the timely and the momentum is really, you know, we are at the end of the 2021, where we learned in the past almost 2 years of the pandemic how collaborations of the global South, or of the countries, continental, who has similar experiences, similar contexts in many ways. It's really neat. We need to collaborate, but in order these collaborations is real, it's not like imaginary. So we need something tangible as well. For example, what we collaborate for, what kind of change we want to build together in our country, and then together in the region, and maybe as the global South, which will will contribute to the humanity, right? So I think that is very important. And so I also would like, lastly, I would like to really highlight the importance of talking about system change is not starting from big thing like thinking change the world, right? But very much start from the look at the individual as a system. So we are living in a system from the family, for example, how systematically actually put women, children's, girls, boys in a very subordinate position. So we need to change it from the beginning. Otherwise, then we put so many things on women's shoulders and many things, responsibilities, and then the livelihood, the quality of life of women will be.
Right.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, charity begins at home. Revolutions begin at home or where you are. Perfect. Please go ahead. Premaji, do you want to go next? And then, yeah. You're already unmuted.
Yeah. I do think that, what we're talking about needs women to be empowered at the base and also be able to move to the next level by building a shared vision across peer networks. But more than that, as I said, this is really the good time to build partnerships between multiple stakeholders. And that's where we can cause change. Because women need access to skills, resources, information, and they really need to be part of the mainstream. Otherwise, what is the purpose of the movement? No? So the exclusions that they are facing need to be turned around into opportunities for inclusion, but also, digitally, financially, to be in leadership positions and to be able to, they themselves bring about the systems change that we're talking about. So I think the roles of women entrepreneurs need to be looked at very carefully and be changed from just being entrepreneurs to also being climate leaders or system change leaders and so on.
Enabler, right. I think this is fantastic. Or this is something that speaks very closely to our heart as livelihood people, livelihoods team in Ashoka. And most of the fellows that we are working with are, working in that direction. So maybe this is very encouraging to hear that we perhaps are already part of the movement of movements. And I would love to talk about this in another platform. How do we expand it and take it forward? So Iman, do you wanna?
I just want to end by something different. I just want to end by saying that for every woman and young woman, I think there are two levels. One is that we will be working with the movement of all movements to change the ecosystem and the rules of the game. But as Nani said, there is also the individual system. And I would like to leave with telling every woman that you are reproducing society. So you have to start by having confidence in yourself and that you're already, overcoming challenges. Yes, there are many challenges, but we can't keep on talking about the challenges because we are strong. We give birth, it's not easy. So we reproduce society and we should be proud of that. We affect generations just by reproducing society. And we also change laws and the laws have impact as social entrepreneurs, and we change mindsets because women lead change, as Nani says and everybody says. As you said, also revolution starts from the home. So I think I would leave everybody who's listening to us and now and the future that we have to have the confidence that we as individuals should start the movement, and that we have to let the community understand that we are no longer going to do all the work. We have to get people to accept us and not to put more burdens on us. So I have a lot of faith in women. I think we have survived a lot of challenges in our lives and next lives, but we also have to have a voice now again and go back and talk about that we are equal and we have to have the same rights as everybody, but we have to do it ourselves.
Lovely. I think that is an absolutely one message that we can all go home with, and then just assert that we are enough, and we are the change makers ourselves, as Ashoka says, and then start building this up, as you said, scaling up, scaling down, and scaling deep. No, absolutely lovely, fantastic conversation. I just feel that I could go on another hour or two. I don't know about you guys, but it has been absolute delight and pleasure to be able to hear you all, and hopefully we'll meet again in another platform. Thanks, Access, for having us all together here. So thank you so much. A lot of gratitude to each one of you. Hopefully we all see you in India, or maybe another day in person. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks, Imam. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you,
Thank you,
President.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, next time in
Thanks.
India.
Thank you, Iman. You are coming to Indonesia, Iman. You said.
Inshallah, I hope so. Yes. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye,
I'll
everyone.
see you. I might probably see you soon, Premaji. I don't have to.
Okay,
We're in
thank
the
you.
same. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
ये गांव वाले को अकेले खेती का काम दिखाता है।
फर्स्ट ऑप्शन तो वैसे नौकरी है लोगों के लिए, अगर सरकारी जॉब मिल जाए, और नहीं मिलती है तो बिजनेस ही दूसरा उसके। खेती में उतनी आमदनी नहीं है।
हम ये सोच रहे हैं कि खेती का काम तो हर कोई करता है, लेकिन ऐसा एक काम करें कि जिसमें नाम रोशन हो और अच्छा काम हो।
मैं केना गांव की हूँ और केना में चूड़ियों की दुकान चलाती हूँ औरतों के लिए। जी, गांव की औरतें बाहर से माल लाती थी, मतलब सौदा, चूड़ी उड़ी वगैरह, कंगन, और अब मैंने दुकान रख ली तो मेरे गांव से यहीं से लेती हैं, तो मतलब उनकी प्रॉब्लम भी सॉल्व हो गई और मेरी दुकान भी और बढ़ती जा रही।
हल्दी, मिर्ची, धनिया ये तो घर पे होती थी, तो हम अपने घर पे क्या करते थे, हम बाजार से नहीं लेते थे, तो हमें हमारा घर का माल हमें अच्छा लगा, तो हमने ये सोचा कि अगर हम अकेले खाएंगे तो हम शुद्ध रहेंगे, जैसे शुद्ध माल हम खाएंगे और 4 लोगों को खिलाएंगे तो सबको अच्छा लगेगा।
गाँव की महिलाओं को मैं बोर्ड बनाना सिखाती हूँ और स्टेबलाइजर का जो ट्रांसफार्मर होता है उसको बनवाती हूँ। ऐसा काम तो कोई महिला करती नहीं है, लेकिन हम भी देखते देखते सोचे कि हम भी ऐसा ही करें, जो नाम हो इसके कि हम बोर्ड का काम करते हैं, बिजली का काम कर रहे हैं। मिलाया कि लड़कियां की चाह बढ़ी ऊपर अंदर से, उनको आइए सिखाएंगे हम।
ये मेरा मकान काफ़ी दिनों से खाली पड़ा था, तो यहाँ पे हम सोचे कि अंदर भी है, रोड पे तो है नहीं कि दुकान खोल के बैठ जाएंगे, इसलिए हमने इस आरोप के बारे में सोच लिए करने के लिए। नेट का ज़माना चला है, उसे मोबाइल के जरिए इसको जानकारी धीरे धीरे लेते 1.5 साल में हम लोग काफ़ी जगह गए और जानकारी कुछ समझ में आया कि काम यही चालू किया जाए।
कैमरा इसलिए लिया हमने कि हमें फिल्मों में जाने का शौक, हम सोचे थे कि मैं फिल्मों में काम करूँगा। इसके बाद हमने कैमरा लिया तो हमें शादी के ऑफर आने लगे, तो फिर हम शादियों में अपना कैमरा ले जाने लगे। तो हमारे पास कैमरा बांधने के लिए आते ही निमंत्रण कहीं और छपाना पड़ते थे, तो बोलते कि आप निमंत्रण भी छापते हो क्या? तो जब हम छापते नहीं थे, जब हमारे पास ज़्यादा मांग पड़ी तो हमने कहा कि हम ये काम भी